What's up, guys? You're watching the Challenge Sports, and this is our new podcast series, Depth Chart. Each week, you're going to be joining a series of Challenge Sports writers. We're going to be going through some of the highs, the lows, the oddities of fandom, talking about our favorite teams and our favorite moments. Today, with me, I've got the Chief, Kunal Kohli. I've got Isis, Elias Mark. How do I say that?
Mackloof.
Okay, Elias Mackloof. And we've got TBD, Mike Adams. How we doing, fellas?
To be determined.
To be determined.
I'm doing
Hey,
pretty good.
Yeah, all things considered, I'm doing pretty solid.
Not bad. So this week, what I wanted to talk about first episode. People love to gravitate towards a tragedy, and I thought, what better than to talk about some of the worst moments for our franchises? So let me start with you, Isis. Where were you on Thanksgiving of 2012?
I was on my couch watching the Jets Pats game, and I was devastated watching it. Once I saw Mark Sanchez slide underneath his own player's butt and fumble the ball and have it returned for a touchdown, I was devastated. I couldn't believe it. My heart was broken 2 years in a row in the AFC Championship game, and it was just like, well, I knew the Jets were going to jet at some point, and that they just did it then. It was the worst night of my life.
That was awful. Like you said, 2009 AFC Championship, tough. 2010 AFC Championship, tough. If I think about some other moments, that Week 17 game against Buffalo in 2015, where Fitzpatrick lost the playoff bid, that was tough. Raiders game a couple of weeks ago, that was tough. But the butt fumble for me sticks out as just one of the most embarrassing moments that's happened to me as a sports fan.
Yeah, I mean, we couldn't go and watch ESPN not top 10 for, what was it, a year and a half?
It was at least a year and a half, yeah.
Yeah, and just every time you're just like, oh, here we go. Here's the butt fumble. It's just like you would think people would get tired of it, but you know what? They just were like, fuck it, we're gonna show it. And just to have to relive that heartbreak over and over again, it wasn't necessary for Jets fans.
Well, and the worst part about that game, too, is the butt fumble was a tough moment, right? Vince Wilfork and Brandon Moore are laid up on each other. I don't know who actually won that battle. If you watch the footage, Brandon Moore might have even been moving forward. But it doesn't matter because Sanchez didn't realize where he's sliding. Brandon Moore's butt knocks the ball out. And that was in the middle of a sequence where running back Sean Green had fumbled the ball and the Pats scored a touchdown. Then the butt fumble happened and the Pats scored a touchdown. And then Joe McKnight, may he rest in peace, botched the kickoff. Julian Edelman grabbed it, and the Pats scored a touchdown. And so now we're sitting here 52 seconds. The Pats have scored 21. After we held them scoreless in the first, they had a 35-point second quarter. It's Thanksgiving. It's supposed to be a nice night. It was not.
No, I mean, all throughout Thanksgiving, I was thinking about this. I was like, okay, the Jets are 4-5. The Pats they were 6-3, right? I was like, okay, if the Jets win, they're one step closer to the division, right? That's something they haven't done in, I don't even know how many years it is now. But I was like, okay, if they can get there, like we might have another shot at the AFC Championship game, like catch lightning in the bottle for the third time, right? This is how I was as a Jets fan. I was just like, I was hyped because like we don't see this normally, like 3 years in a row where we're good. It's like, where the fuck are we, And no, it's just like, it was so good because like the game was so competitive and then it's just like it was gone in less than a minute.
I
it was tough.
I think that's the thing that people always forget about those teams is like, before that as a Jets fan, all I really had was Chad Pennington throwing marshmallows every single play. And then Rex Ryan comes in, says, gets in some spat with Channing Crowder, says, I've stepped over tougher guys going to bar fights than Channing Crowder. It's like, hell yeah, man. We actually got a team now. And suddenly they have a good defense. They have a good running game. Like Thomas Jones in 2009 had like the best season of his career. Darrelle Revis was losing his mind, and all those boring draft picks they made of like offensive linemen actually really started to come together. And that team was like, I mean, yeah, Mark Sanchez was never great, but like you said, Mark Sanchez, I think to this day, if I'm not mistaken, is still tied for most all-time road playoff wins for an NFL quarterback because those teams just like they were doing it. And in 2011 wasn't really a great season. They went 8-8, but just I think the thing about that play was that in just one terrible moment, in a nationally broadcast Thanksgiving game in front of millions upon millions of people against their rival. It couldn't have possibly been any more embarrassing, but that was really the end of that whole team. Like, you can point to exactly that. And then from that point on, Rex Ryan is no longer the tough guy who gave this team some attitude and, built a defense that actually played with some grit. He's just the toe guy from that point on.
The toe guy. Yeah,
I don't
pretty
even
much.
think.
And like you said, I mean, those were scrappy teams. Those couple of teams, 2009, 2010, 2011 wasn't good, but then, like you said, 2012 was the end. That play happened. That's probably the last memorable Sanchez play you can think of on the Jets. He doesn't play on the 2013 season, and then 2014 he's on the Eagles. 2013 was the year we went to Geno Smith. So the whole formula got broken up, and it kind of just feels like everything has continued going downhill from there.
Yeah, like in the Jets' history, like in recent history, like that's the pinpoint where everything just fell apart. It was just like for the next almost decade now, they've been trash, I mean, we've had to deal with Geno Smith getting punched in the face by a practice squad player. Ryan Fitzpatrick comes in, plays great, and then the next year he's just trash, falls apart. Now Sam Darnold, who was supposed to be our savior, now who the fuck knows what he's doing? He's fucking trash. And now we're going to be the third team with an 0-16 record, and it's tough being a Jets fan.
There was always at least was 2012 the year that Santonio Holmes just quit?
Yeah, that was
was that the same season? But
yeah, there was Rex Ryan was like, yeah, he pulled himself out, and they're like, no, that's not what happened. A coach sat him because he was acting like an asshole.
Incredible.
So that was also the year 2012 then that – oh, no, you know what? I'm sorry. You said Santonio Holmes, and I immediately thought about that unsportsmanlike conduct penalty by the Bills with Plaxico Burress when he was a Jet, where one of them pretended to shoot themselves in the leg after scoring a touchdown.
Poor guy, man. I feel like I never heard anyone use the expression shot themselves in the foot until Plaxico Burress actually shot himself in the foot. And then that was just and now for the rest of my life, I hear nothing but, they really shot themselves in the foot on that play. That's mean.
So I will say this about that 2012 Jet squad. They've become a bit of a force in the sports broadcast world, and I don't mind it. I think Rex Ryan has been pretty good. He still runs his mouth even when he's on morning shows, but he's been okay. I actually really enjoy listening to the Sanchez as an analyst. Damian Woody and Bart Scott are both very good as well. That you've got four major players from those 2009, 2010 Jets teams who have gone into broadcast that I still get to see. It sort of reminds me of better days when I turn on the TV sometimes.
The Mark Sanchez podcast, it's like 4th and 1 or something like that. That's actually a pretty decent podcast. Don't watch that podcast and not watch our podcast, but
right after you finish with our podcast, watch that
make
one.
sure you check that one out.
Yeah, you're actually not allowed to watch that podcast unless you watched ours first. It's a clause contained in their contract.
Right, and since
we worked this out with them,
promoted his podcast now, he actually has to give us a promo too. So, Mark, I'll be reaching out.
Yeah, this is just common law. Everyone knows this.
All right, so and then let's talk about another awful moment in recent history for a New York sports franchise. Kunal, where were you in 2018 when KP tore his ACL? Talk to me about that.
So I was at work, right? I work at a TV news station. I was over at our sports department. They had the game on, and I was talking so much shit because Kristaps just dunked on Giannis. Back to the TV, I'm yelling. I'm like, let's go. The unicorn just dunked it. That's right. Give him a year or two. Knicks going to the playoffs, right? And then one of our sports guys is like, you need to turn around. You need to turn around now. I don't think he's coming back for a year. And I turn around and Kristaps is clutching his leg. And I'm just like, please just be a minor injury. Please just be a sprain. But I knew it wasn't a sprain. And mind you, this is probably a month or maybe a few weeks after Boogie tore his ACL. So that was fresh in my mind. I love DeMarcus Cousins, and that was a tragedy watching that. But Kristaps, as soon as he clutched his leg, I knew it was over. And mind you, that was the only bright spot on that Knicks team. The rest of that roster was straight trash. Like, they had just drafted Frankie Smokes, who the whole city hated. Like, everybody wanted Dennis Smith Jr., but yet we got Frankie Smokes, who has not turned out to be anything. Joakim Noah was riding the bench hard. I think you had Dougie McBuckets on that team at one point. Ennis Cantor was there, but Ennis Cantor was kind of balling out, so I'll give him that. Oh, and you had the return of Tim Hardaway Jr. So there was literally no bright spots on that team other than Kristaps Porzingis. And of course, Knicks fans can't have anything good. Like, that's the number one reason you're a Knicks fan, is because it's in the biggest market in the NBA, and because you hate yourself. That's why you're a Knicks fan. So watching that was just the epitome of a Knicks fan. We get one good thing. Finally, Melo's gone, but at least we have one good thing. We have Kristaps, and he just gets, after dunking on Giannis, he gets snatched away from us. You know what? They say that God made the world in 7 days, and on the 8th day, he said, "Fuck the Knicks."
God.
That was an afterthought. The Knicks to the creation story. You can find them in the footnotes of Genesis and the King James Standard.
Yeah. What if we made a basketball team that has every right and reason to be good and popular and to just attract the most prolific players of the sport that the world has ever known, and then we handed them over to the guy who fronts JD in the straight shot and just see what happens? Oh my God. When KP got traded, I felt a very strange reaction to that moment. That was like seeing one of my buddies make it up out of the neighborhood. You know what I mean? That was like, I was actually glad for him. I'm a Knicks fan. I love watching him. And I was just kind of happy he made it out, because this is the same team that Carmelo Anthony makes fun of James Dolan's shitty band. He's like forced to apologize in public, and then they sent him to Oklahoma. And Oklahoma was like a pretty decent team at that moment. It wasn't like the worst trade basketball wise, or the worst place they could have sent him, but to put the face of the franchise at that point, who had done what he could for that team and given us that one season where Ray Felton played out of his goddamn mind. They won like 50 games out of nowhere, and to go from that to Oklahoma, it's just
and they got nothing in that trade. Literally nothing.
They got Ennis Cantor. That is it.
This Cantor,
season of Ennis.
Ennis Cantor's awesome. Ennis Cantor's just out here hating on Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Gotta love my man Ennis Cantor for that.
Dude, I'm a big Ennis Cantor fan, but like you say, it just seems like the Knicks, whether it was Melo or whether it was KP, they take these players and they're like, oh, now the franchise has some promise. Look at this superstar. And then they refuse to give the guy any help, just time and again. So, I mean, I understand the butt fumble, right? It's an embarrassing mistake of a play. And thankfully, nobody was seriously hurt except for just a whole lot of people's egos and Fireman Ed.
Fireman Ed left.
Fireman Ed left the game before halftime. That was rough. But with the Knicks, it's like, and I guess with the Jets, you're thinking about the future. You're disappointed. It just looks like your franchise has their heads up their ass, honestly.
Every season, the season's done in the first month of the season. Just like, okay, well, we got to get through September and November, and we'll get some good games, but by the end of them, we know we're done. It's very sad.
The butt fumble brought us to this new era of just complete and total shittiness. Where like before that, I could always my joke was that I could always count on the Jets to have like 2/3 of a good team. They would have a good defense and a good running game, but they wouldn't have like receivers or a quarterback. And then they got a couple of receivers, and they still didn't have a quarterback, and their defense got a little worse. And then and then Ryan Fitzpatrick was throwing bombs for like 1 year to get his contract, as he does. And then they just didn't have any sort of running game or targets for him. And again, just Mark Sanchez eating a face full of ass for Brandon Moore, which again, I will say was the right thing to do. Like Brandon Moore was a great guard. That's probably like a good instinctive, like, oh yeah, let me run towards the big guy who's holding the offense Wilfork right now. And that's where the safety is, right? It's like, you're a child running home to your parents when you get scared in the woods or something. So I understand the instinct there, but then everything from that point afterwards is just nothing.
I mean, maybe if he did like 1 or 2 less squats a day, his butt wouldn't have been so big, and then we wouldn't even had to have seen that fumble.
Right.
But
This
who
is
knows?
actually an overwork problem, thanks
Yeah.
to Brandon Moore's tireless work ethic. That's actually what happened that day.
Well, I guess we can't blame him because he did have a delicious looking ass. So I mean, maybe Mark Sanchez really just wanted to get up in there.
I mean, like Billy Gunn, he's an ass man,
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
he was just
bounce
like,
on that thing. That was like running. That was like watching him hit an airbag.
I was surprised he wasn't. I'm surprised he wasn't in concussion protocol after that one.
Dude, I'm sure he wanted to be with the way the questions were ringing and repeating themselves the days after. What happened on that play? What happened on that play? And he's like, am I concussed?
What does his ass taste like? I don't know. It's strawberries.
And by the way, the thing we haven't mentioned yet as far as embarrassing moments, we've talked a lot about games against the Bills and Rex Ryan with the feet. What about the fact that he got a tattoo of his wife wearing a Mark Sanchez jersey and then had that jersey colored blue when he became coach of the Buffalo Bills?
Oh God, is that what happened to that?
Yeah,
never heard the
absolutely.
epilogue.
It was a
Kidding.
tattoo of his wife wearing a number 6 green jersey, and he had it colored blue when he went to the Bills.
Wasn't she doing the Tebow?
I don't know if she was doing the Tebow, but I know that people were hollering for him after Sanchez took a bite out of Brandon Moore.
Tebow. Oh, don't even remind me about Tebow. The only reason anyone ever thought that Tim Tebow was an NFL caliber quarterback is because
I mean,
I genuinely don't know. I don't know. I'm gonna write it off as racism.
Jesus helped lead him to 2 playoff wins with the Broncos, and that man's career never saw God again.
Hey,
And-
listen, I'll tell you this though. I'm sitting there, Nice Egg Stadium, Binghamton, New York, early April 2018. It is 29 degrees out. The Binghamton Rumble Ponies are starting off the AA season. And who else but outfielder Tim Tebow, who was hitting as a DH that game, I believe, stepped up to the plate and on his first AA pitch belted a 2-run home run. The stadium went insane. All, I don't know, 45 of us who were there in the cold. So
See-
I'm taking that one to the bank.
You know what double sucks too about Tim Tebow is if Tim Tebow had been a better quarterback, there might not have been any market for the Broncos to go after Peyton Manning. There might have been no reason because they would have had a younger guy, they would have had an athletic guy. Like, Tim Tebow with just a little more ability, you could totally see why he would be a good player. But so in this alternate world, the Broncos don't have to go looking for Peyton Manning, and then Peyton Manning's best career seasons don't come with Adam Gase on the sidelines, just happening to be the guy who's the offensive coordinator for a dude who's already his own offensive coordinator. Like Peyton Manning famously calls all his plays at the line of scrimmage himself in Gaelic. Like there is no coaching when you have Peyton Manning going. So that man never gets the quarterback whisperer,
right. And then he never
now.
goes to Chicago, and then he never goes to Miami, and then he never comes to the Jets.
Yeah.
And we might have had Peyton Manning.
It's literally Tim Tebow's fault that the Jets hired Adam Gase.
This all goes back to Tim Tebow. It's incredible.
God. All right. Well, that should do it for us for tonight. This has been Depth Chart. You've been watching The Chief, Easus, TBD, and I'm Skipper. Come on back, watch another episode of Depth Chart. We'll have some more writers on talking about their teams, the best moments, the worst moments, and going off the rails talking about sports oddities like the taste of Brandon Moore's ass. Once again, you're watching The Challenge Sports. Thanks for hanging with us. Have a good one.